Welcome back to the Banners broadcast. I'm your host, Chris Grenham, and with me, as always, Nick Gelso. Nick, how are you, man?
Man, I'm a couple loser teams, good wins against loser teams. It'll set you straight.
You have a winning streak. We're talking about a winning streak.
A winning streak. I think it's like the first of the year, and I'm psyched to have Jeff Goodman today as our guest, who's out west, out in San Diego. I'm wondering if he used his away travel luggage, because that's right. A great way to segue into today's sponsor. We have two, but the first is away travel. Dude, I got to tell you, my luggage was a mess from the amount of traveling covering the team I've done over the years. Yeah. This luggage is swank. I could actually plug my cell phone into it and charge it. It's got the hard case. The internal insides of the luggage is amazing, because a carry-on now fits a week worth of clothes with all the compartments. So encouraging everybody to check that out. Get a great discount. Go over to awaytravel.com/CLNS. Use the promo code CLNS. And again, you're going to get a hefty discount. And I've been giving away travel as Christmas gifts to our road reporters, Chris. So, you might get one.
There you go. Especially for a busy January coming up for the Celtics.
Yeah, with no away games.
No away games. Yeah, that's right. Well, they've got 3 away games in 1 road trip, and then just 1 for the rest of the month. So
you look at Wednesdays. I think it's either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. It's like 5, because I think there's 5
Wednesdays.
Weeks in January.
It's 5. There's 5 Wednesdays in January, and the Celtics have a home game every single one.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't ask for more if you're the Celtics. You're rolling into
perfect.
A part of the season where you're finally taking advantage of the bottom feeders and beating those teams. Great.
You're supposed to be doing this a while ago.
Yeah, well, and that's a shame, because they pretty much blew the 1 seed unless Toronto has a complete collapse. And
still plenty of time, of course. Like they'll figure it out, but they're starting to do what they're supposed to do, which is good.
The one thing that's good in that situation, Chris, is that they have beaten Toronto. Is the season series even?
With Toronto, yeah, it's 1-1. They lost to him the second game of the season, and then they beat him at home.
In Boston, which is a great game. And they play 3 games, I think. So they still have the opportunity to take the tiebreaker. These are the things they built themselves such a hole early on that we're all looking at way too early in the season. But you have to, because they're barely a 500 team.
Yeah. And I think that, they should have. So they have 2 more games, I think. I think they play 4 with Toronto. They go 1 in January and then 1 in either February or March, I believe. But either way, it's crazy that we're even looking at that. But
so 2 more with Toronto?
2 more with Toronto, that's correct.
Yeah, it's division. They're in our division. That's correct.
Yep.
All right, yeah. So 1 more at the Garden, 1 more in Toronto. I'd love to see them get a win in Toronto. I think it's been like since the millennia that they had a win in Toronto.
It's a tough place to play. I
don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. And everyone has difficulty, not just the Celtics. Everyone has difficulty up there, yeah. But either way, they've got... So we're recording this on Friday, following the Celtics' 128-100 win over the Knicks. They travel to Chicago this afternoon to face the Bulls tomorrow night in Chicago, and then they've got New Orleans at home, the Wizards on the road, and then back home next Friday against the Hawks. So let's get to our conversation with Jeff Goodman regarding the current state of these Boston Celtics. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 1in100. Go to 1in100.co for your chance to win killer Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, or even concert tickets throughout New England for the price of beer or a large pizza. Go to 1in100.co for your chance to win today. Now we welcome on Stadium's Jeff Goodman, host of the Good and Plenty podcast. You can listen to that on the CLNS Media Network. Jeff, how is the West Coast treating you? I'm very, very jealous continuously.
Yeah, because you should be jealous, because all I've seen is rain up until
and mud
right now. when you guys have me doing this podcast, it's finally, this is the first time I've seen sun in 72 hours since I got to
Chris,
San Diego.
We planned it perfectly, Chris, to screw up Jeff's day. Perfect. What's going on now? Where are we, in the stadium? What's going on?
I don't know what the hell that is. I don't know what
we made sure to plan it this way, so once it would get sunny on the West Coast, you could sit in a hotel room and talk about the Boston Celtics for 2 hours. So that's
this is at least 3 hours.
Yeah.
My goal was to bring the laptop onto the beach and actually do this podcast while I was on the beach, but I had to do something, so I couldn't get out there quick.
Typical.
That would be pretty unbelievable if you were able to do that. I would hate you, but that would be pretty unbelievable.
Picture of me podcasting on the beach.
You might as well invite Bill Walton over and smoke a joint too. Be on the beach, smoke a J, put on some Grateful Dead.
You know that? Do you know that he's got a teepee in in San Diego, in the back of his house.
You've been in it?
I've been in the teepee. I'll send you a picture.
Please send a picture.
Oh, my
It's
God.
awesome.
That's
It's
incredible.
awesome.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
really.
Listening to him do the Maui Invitational is like the greatest thing in the world because he doesn't focus on the game whatsoever. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He never focuses on any game he does.
Anything.
Like,
His
no.
ADD.
It's awesome.
doing a game with him, like I've done probably, 4 or 5 games sideline with him when I was at ESPN, and it's a riot. You don't get to talk because he goes so long, but you don't care. You
Right.
just sit there and you laugh the entire broadcast.
Yeah.
Here's the greatest one. Here's the greatest thing of Bill Walton. So I remember I was doing a game with him in Portland last year. I did a bunch of games with him, actually, because they split it up, and I did every game. There were 2 gyms at once. So I texted Luke the night before, and I said something like, hey, I'm gonna read off, because Bill like recites all these random facts that you're like, there's no way they're right. He's so full of shit, and he's making this stuff up, right? So I texted Luke, and I'm like, come on, like, are these real? He's like, no, this dude knows. Like, I said, all right, I'm gonna play a game with him, like on the air. I'm gonna fact check him and check it out. I'm gonna pick like 3 or 5 of them, and then check them, Google them, whatever, find out are they true or not, and then report back. So I did it. This dude was dead on. Like,
Man. Maybe he needs to hang out with Donald Trump for a while, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Speaking of Luke, what's going on there? Is he going to keep his job?
I think so. I mean, I do.
So.
Listen, if there's something that Luke is great at, it's dealing with people and dealing with us, right? So, like, that's the number one thing you have to do, right? If you have LeBron behind you, doesn't matter what your record is or anything like that. If LeBron likes you, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
And listen, as I've said on the Good and Plenty podcast, by the way,
good job.
Many
times, nice and subtle. Yep.
Many times.
Subscribe.
Like, the Lakers are going to be fine. Yeah, subscribe on iTunes. Give your reviews. Like, I'll go through the whole spiel. To me, again, you got to give them time, and they're not going to be this unbelievable team. Like, the first 20 games were a throwaway to me, complete throwaway.
Yeah.
Next 20, you start to evaluate them, and then really after the All-Star break, that's when you want to see what this Lakers team can become. But I said it from the day one, like, I'd be surprised if the Lakers aren't playing Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. I really would. I'd be surprised.
Wow.
Damn.
Wow. That's a big
one.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. I can't believe I'm actually asking it, but are you using the same evaluation process with the Celtics right now?
Yeah, kind of. Just because of Gordon more than anything else. I don't want to say it was a throwaway year. The 20 games wasn't a throw. Like, for the Lakers, it was a complete throwaway for me.
Right.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
I don't care at all what they did. The Celtics, I kind of was like that early, and then I started to be like, all right, what's going on here? Like, should they be worried at all? And I talked to Danny in Vegas about a week ago, right before Thanksgiving for a while. And I think he said, he's like, I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. Should we be playing better than we are? Absolutely. And he made an interesting point. He's like, it's almost like if we have one guy out of the lineup just resting every game, we'd be fine. Like, because right now people weren't able to get their reps, especially like Gordon, right? Gordon needed his reps to get his confidence, to get the rust off, and he wasn't getting them. And I talked to somebody really close to him, and that's what he said. He said, like, it's frustrating for Gordon in a way, because think about it. If he were in Utah, the old Utah team, they would have thrown him back out there, and he would have got his 15 or 20 shots and figured it out quicker. And now it's just very difficult for him. I think when you're getting some games where you're getting 6 or 8 shots, and you touch the ball and you give it up, and you don't know if you're going to get it back for a while. And I think a lot of guys are hunting shots in that regard, because you're not knowing if you're going to see the ball again. There's so many weapons on this team.
Do you think it's better? Do you think it's better to have him obviously on that second unit where he's been? It seems like he's not pressing as much there, and it kind of gives him a little more flexibility. Gives the whole lineup flexibility. Honestly, he can act as that primary ball handler. Terry Rozier, who I think works better off the ball, can work off of him alongside now Jaylen Brown. So do you think that's a solution for the for the short term. Obviously, if he continues to perform pretty well, he'll probably find his way back into the starting lineup. But what do you think about that second unit that the Celtics have going right now?
I think it's better for his confidence too. He's going up against second unit guys.
Right.
You know,
it's showing.
Like, that's what he needed. He needed his confidence up as much as anything else. And what better way to get it than playing against, second tier guys for the most part. So, I think it was good on all levels right now. And again, it can change, or if it works, like Gordon Hayward is no ego guy. I mean, that's the thing about him. He's got very little ego, and I think he'd be fine, especially coming back from what he came back. I think he appreciates, obviously, just being on the court to some extent. Obviously, he wants to get back to what he was. But if you told him, all right, you're going to be back to what you are come playoffs or even maybe next season, but this year, be happy to be on the court and be a good NBA player and be a part of something, I think he'd sign up for that.
Yeah, I think you would too. And I think what a lot of people love talking about starting lineups and bench units, and Gordon's not a guy who he gets moved to the second unit. He doesn't view that as a demotion or like it doesn't like you said, it doesn't impact him. Like it doesn't phase him.
And it's setting a good precedent because I think it may have phased a guy like Jaylen Brown. But if you have Gordon Hayward saying, yo, dude, I'm ready to go to the bench if that's going to help the team, Jaylen doesn't have a leg to stand on. And
Danny said Jaylen. Danny raves about Jaylen. I know. I know.
Get it.
I'm just saying Danny raves about Jaylen and his maturity.
Yeah.
Which is really I'm a little surprised. I thought Jaylen would be the guy that would have the hardest time with last year to this year, along with maybe Terry. But Terry knew this was coming. Like Terry
he did.
You could say whatever you want. Like, and Terry told me this early in the year. He's like, I know I'm gonna have good days and bad days in terms of minutes and whatnot. I knew this was what I signed up for. Jaylen's was probably more difficult because he thinks he probably is something he's not.
Right.
Yes. I got to be honest, Jaylen, like this past week at practices and before last night's game, he's been, like Danny said, just extremely mature about the whole thing. He said all of the right things. Now, who knows if he's just saying all the right things.
Chris, it's called humble pie. He's taking a good piece of humble pie.
Hey, he's taking a really good piece, and I'm really impressed. He's saying all the right things. Basically, whatever allows us to keep winning, I'll do. I'm 100% for it. So I'm pretty impressed.
Listen, but how many guys don't say that? Like, how dumb do you have to be to not say that when you're asked, well, what do your role this year, it's different. Well, screw you. Like, I can't believe I'm in this role. I was putting up 20 a night in the playoffs. I was a feature. Well, like Jaylen's smart enough to know, even if and same thing with Terry, even if they believe it deep down and they're frustrated, you can't say it. You can't.
Well, it definitely seemed to work because Thursday night he looked like the Jaylen Brown we've been begging for all season long. And it's frustrating because he's coming off an injury. He came into the season healthy. We didn't see that until he gets put to the bench. Not, obviously that's maybe a latent motivator, but I like him on the bench. I like Jaylen on the bench.
I
would like Jaylen on somebody else's bench. I don't really care, Jeff.
Yeah, I said, listen, I said after last year, and people thought I was out of my mind, but I was like, you know what? Now might be the perfect time to trade Jaylen Brown. His stock was really high. And again, it's not like he's going to get better. I'm not saying he's not going to get better in a lot of regards. Like, I think he'll be better in the half court in 2 years and reading plays and making the right decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
But what he did over his first year and a half or whatever it's been, last year especially, he shot the ball better than he will be as a shooter over his career, in my opinion, from three.
You don't realize it, but you just hit on one of Nick's favorite talking topics here in terms of value on Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, and if Danny Ainge kind of screwed that one up. So, Nick, I'll let you take the floor here. You can take it.
It's very, very simple. Has their value diminished to a point where, because Danny's not going to trade them if he doesn't get what he feels is an even return, is it at a point where now he's kind of stuck with them for, an unlimited period of time?
No, here's the thing. I mean, there are two different issues, right? Like, Rozier, you had to keep to see, number one, if Kyrie was going to stay healthy.
Right.
So if you thought you had any shot at doing something this year, which you don't know. I mean, people kind of gave up on him early. At the end of the day, they're going to be a top 3 seed in the East. And honestly, does it matter who you play in the East in any round? Are you like, Toronto's better today. Milwaukee, you're not scared of at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, Toronto's the one team that would scare you a little bit right now just because of Kawhi.
And not to have home court because they suck in Toronto.
Yes, no doubt.
Don't forget about the Magic, Jeff. Don't forget about the Magic.
I will not forget about the Magic. So, like, Rozier's a little different. I think, you were kind of hamstrung because otherwise, again, who's your point guard? You want to go on Brad Wanamaker and Marcus Smart at the point? Like, I don't. So you kind of have to just keep Terry Rozier and almost come to the conclusion that you're going to lose him after this year. You probably are.
Well, okay, so like our good friend Maz over at the Sports Hub, he's convinced that Kyrie has not really made up his mind. If you listen to his afternoon, the Felger and Maz show, I mean, he's still going on about, this mind can be changed and blah, blah, blah. What, are you buying that?
I'll say this. Yeah, I'll say this. You never know with Kyrie, but he put himself out there. And he would look like a complete dick if he went back on it. Just because unless something major changes, right? If something major changes, that's one thing. And you wonder too, like, if you're Danny, are you waiting? Because you want to make sure he's healthy. You don't want to give him the money now. Like you want to wait as long as you possibly can to make sure that his knees hold up this year. Because otherwise, again, like if you do it now, then you're basically probably saying, like, all right, we're locked into him and Rozier is gone. If Kyrie gets hurt, let's say, in a month, then you say to yourself, man, all right, that's another knee injury. Maybe we should just pay Terry. He loves Terry. Like, he thinks Terry could be the guy on this team, and he showed it to all of us last year during the playoffs. So that's my deal on Terry. With Jaylen, it's different. I still think Jaylen's got trade value. His contract's still pretty good right now. I don't think, he's a centerpiece guy, but I think if you threw him in with the Sacramento pick this year and somebody else for a superstar, you could be in the equation to get one of the elite level players in the league. Now, you can't do it with Anthony Davis. We know that. Right. And I don't know who you do it with. Like, I don't know who that guy is. But, to me, again, I think we talked about this a while ago when Kawhi was even hurt last year. It's like Jaylen Brown and all these first-round picks for Kawhi. Would you do it? Every one of them. If you knew Kawhi was going to stay in Boston. Now, again, you don't know that. But I'm saying let's play the hypothetical game. You know you can keep Kawhi in Boston. Would you trade Jaylen Brown and every damn first-round pick you have access to this year?
Yes.
Of course you
would. Yeah, watching the way Kawhi's playing, I think so.
Right. You get as many elite level players as you can. Jaylen Brown is not an elite level player. He's a good player. I've always said Jaylen Brown's great. And again, people thought I was nuts when I said it last year because the playoffs, he looked like people thought he was like a number 1 or number 2 guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's great as your number 5 option. If he's your number 5 option on the floor, then you know what? You got a team probably capable of maybe winning it all.
If he understands and accepts the fact that he is the 5th option.
And I think he had a little trouble. I think he had a little trouble dealing with that because he clearly was the 5th option in that starting lineup. I mean, he wasn't. It wasn't He's probably the worst dribbler, the worst scorer in that. I mean, I'm not saying he's terrible at these things, but in terms of that lineup, he was the number 5 passer, probably the number 5 scorer, and the number 5 dribbler. So there's a lot of things, and I think he had some trouble adjusting with that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I think defensively he's good and he's a high-level athlete, and if you get him in transition, he's terrific. But in the half court, he struggles, and he always kind of has, to be honest. Since AAU ball, he struggled a little bit in the half court to make the right decision. But in AAU ball, he was so athletic it didn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, Jeff, real quick. So this is kind of sticking with the draft pick idea here. Obviously, you came out with
was that your Boston accent coming through?
Yeah,
came out with your
Chris.
What'd you say?
Very Boston of you there with that accent. Yeah.
So you came out with your mock draft, your first one on Stadium earlier this week. I think you had the Celtics. Obviously, the order of the teams doesn't really matter this early on in mock drafts, but in that, I think you had them getting Rui Hachimura and Kobe White, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I have Rui at 7. I
Yeah.
kind of am projecting, and I'm just kind of projecting that Sacramento ends up in that range of like around 7.
Right. So do you think, ignoring the order at this point, do you think those two guys would be ideal for Boston's setup right now? Who do you see them targeting if they keep these picks, say they don't trade them for any reason during the season? Who do you see them targeting in this next draft?
I mean, listen, we know Danny loves those kind of multi-dimensional forwards. I think he's just going to take the best player on the board. And there's a bunch of multi-dimensional forwards that could be there in that Sacramento range, right? So, like, DeAndre Hunter's a kid from Virginia who fits the part. He's really versatile, more athletic, he's smooth. Nasir Little's a kid at North Carolina who's really struggling right now. People have pegged as like a top 3 pick going in at 4, along with the 3 Duke boys. And Little's really struggling right now. Rui's been the best player in college basketball through the first month. You and I talked about that, Chris. Like he's been terrific. He's shooting the ball better. He's big. He's strong. He's athletic. So those would be a few. Romeo Langford is a name that could be in the mix. The freshman at Indiana, not a great shooter though, and that's what
not a great shooter.
Worry
He's
about.
Athletic and get to the hoop, but not a great shooter.
Yeah. And then if they with Terry, if they think they're going to lose Terry, the best point guard and a guy that totally fits the type of point guard they'd be looking for is this kid, John Morant.
Bring me Murray State. Let's do it.
He is
that would be great.
So athletic. He was a setup guy last year as a freshman at Murray State because he had 2 older guys, 2 seniors that did most of the scoring. Now he's scoring. He can get 20 any night he wants. And went for like 38 against Alabama. Not a great shooter. I talked to him. He kind of said, the guy that I like to compare myself to, he said, I'm not this guy, but my game is similar to Russell Westbrook. I got to take care of the basketball better. I got to shoot it better from 3, but he's got that gear. So, like, if you lost Rozier, he'd be the perfect guy to groom as the next guy to replace Kyrie, or if Kyrie happened to hurt himself again or something like that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting pickup for the Celtics.
Nick, don't you want him to draft Bol? Have you seen Bol yet?
All your tweets are making me want to. Yes, for sure. You've been covering him. Are you following him like you followed like the Ball family, or like what's going on there?
No, not quite. He's not quite as entertaining as LeVar. I can actually spend more time with Bol and be okay. Like LeVar, it was like small doses, and then the 10-day Lithuania was like way too big.
That was enough.
That you think that was enough for my life? That'll be it. Thank God. I mean, I might have had a reunion. Think about this. I'm out here in L.A. The Lakers did not play at home tonight. If they had played at home tonight, I would have went.
You could have.
Ended up seeing them.
Oh, we should have had a camera there to follow you around.
Could have called me a shyster again.
Yeah, Jeff, you and I gotta we'll bring a camera to the Hoop Hall Classic in Springfield in January. We'll go to the Spire game and we'll have a reunion. It'll be great.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're heading.
Is that really January? We're like a month and change away from having. I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
They brought Spire, and I think they're playing Saturday at Hoop Hall. During that weekend.
I'm gonna drink heavily before.
We'll be out in L.A. and Golden State in March, but I'm sure you won't be there. That'll be the midst of March Madness.
I will probably not
be there. Yeah. So I got something here. All right. So biggest surprise this season, I think you'll say Marcus Morris. I'm sorry.
Definitely. I mean, it's got to be Marcus Morris, and not just like for me. It's like the mature Marcus Morris. Like I never thought I'd say those words in the same sentence.
Well, and add contract into that sentence because it is a contract here. Yeah, that
does help.
Biggest disappointment, Bob Ryan says Jason Tatum.
Oh, he's out of his mind. I love
that. That's ridiculous.
Early on, he had a case.
Yeah,
I would agree. Jason Tatum was really up and down. He was frustrated, I think, trying to figure out his role, even though like his role is 100 times better than it was a year ago at this time. But I think he was still just trying to figure out how you play with Kyrie and how you play with all this talent. Because let's face it, last year in the playoffs, it was the Jason Tatum show.
It was,
right? Like he could do whatever he wanted, and they needed him to do whatever he wanted. And now it's different. And I think it took him a while to adjust to that. And as a 19-year-old, it was frustrating for him to try to figure that out. So I would say Tatum would not be my biggest disappointment. Can't
say Gordon. I mean, it's just not fair.
I mean, I can't. Like, I just think, yeah, like
I think for me it might be Terry, just because obviously he wasn't expected to come in and do what he did in the playoffs, but I was more so disappointed in the way he adjusted. I thought he was going to be better early on coming off that bench unit, and he seemed to have a lot of trouble falling back into that role, and that kind of surprised me. So maybe it's more of a shock than a real disappointment, because I'm sure he'll be fine and he'll adapt, and now that he's got Jaylen and Gordon alongside of him. But I don't know. I just thought Terry would be able to make some better adjustments early on.
I think it's Terry. And again, I think we all thought Terry would dominate against second unit point guards.
Yeah, we did.
And, take their lunch. Like, anytime he wants, he'd just go out there. And there was such a big gap between Terry and whoever the backup point guard was on the other
that was
team.
the expectation.
And he hasn't done that. He just hasn't done it. So, yeah, I would say Terry for me.
As far as Morris goes, too, we were all, the three of us were there last year. He came in distracted with the trial, out of shape. He had the knee injury, and he was disgruntled because he wasn't starting. So looking at all that, even though he kind of turned it around throughout the season and in the playoffs, but I was thinking going into this season, this dude's not going to accept this role with the glut of talent. But he really has embraced it, and he's excelled. And I do think the contract year thing helps him quite a bit in this motivator.
Too, yeah.
But hell, man, he has been just the most consistent guy on the floor for them. Scary.
He has. And he's been so efficient, too, which is crazy.
Right. What hasn't he done well? I mean, he's shot it well. He's still rebounding at a high level. He's defending
decently.
Yeah. I mean, every single aspect of the game. And, again, even the intangible part. And everybody likes playing with Marcus because Marcus will go to war.
Yeah.
But again, I think it'll be interesting to see what type of contract he gets after the year.
Imagine someone coming to you in July and saying, "Yeah, well, this stacked Celtics roster, Marcus Morris is going to be the most consistent and efficient player on this team." I would have told you to get out of my face.
Right?
Yeah, me too. Me too. NBC Boston has the BWA now bench with motivation. Do you think coming into the season they were a bit ahead of themselves as far as the trash talking and maybe a little bit complacency, and that fed into some of the issues early in the season? There was a lot of trash talking on Twitter with the Cavs. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Before the ball even bounced down the court.
I guess. I mean, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know how much that plays in, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. It annoyed the hell out of me, so it played in a lot for me.
Really?
Nick, right, you did not like that at all.
I'm like, dude, come on, man. You didn't even start training camp yet. You're already saying you have the best bench in the league. Well, they all look like idiots, 15 games into the season. Now it's starting to turn around. But we still haven't seen them play really any quality. The Pelicans is the closest to a quality team they've beaten.
Well, that's right. I'm glad we didn't get through the entire podcast without talking about that. Because let's face it, like who they've played lately. Now, again, that's going to be some of who they play in the East. So, like, they're going to go through those stretches when they play some teams that, again, the Knicks stink, Cleveland stinks, New Orleans isn't nearly as good as some people thought they'd be this year. Minnesota's still not great, and Gordon was great in that game. So, and coming up, look who you got.
It doesn't really change, coming up.
Right. At Chicago, New Orleans at home, at Washington, Atlanta at home. I mean, they should just run it.
They really should.
At Detroit, Phoenix at home, Milwaukee at home, Charlotte at home. You look at it and you're like, they're clearly better now. Again, they've lost to a lot of not bad teams, but some bad teams.
Bad teams, yeah.
I thought the stretch before with the Hornets and the Knicks and the Jazz and the Mavericks, it was supposed to be fine, and they lost all those games.
Let's keep in mind, too, January, you might as well just, not leave the Garden.
Sleep at the arena.
Every single game is home. Every game's home, but like 3.
Yeah.
So this is their time, man. I mean, that's my barometer. Like once January ends, if they don't have, they don't have it together, then I'm going to start saying, okay, there's a major issue here.
Yeah. January's going to be a nice measuring stick.
Yep.
All right, Jeff. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your time out in Los Angeles. You could follow Jeff at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. Check out all the stuff.
Good and Plenty podcast, man.
Good and Plenty podcast. That's right, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you can check out all of his stuff on WatchStadium.com.
This is Jeff Goodman, host of the Good and Plenty podcast on the CLNS Media Network. We've got two podcasts. Every Tuesday, we've got the NBA edition. Anyway, I've known Boogie a long time, and I like him now. We didn't get along forever.
Hold on. Since you bringing up Boogie, Jeff, have you told the story you and Boogie's interaction a few times? That would make for golden podcast material right there.
When he cornered me coming out of STK in Vegas. Every Thursday, we've got the College Hoops edition where you'll find the top coaches, players, media people. You get insight that you will not find anywhere else. So subscribe to the Good and Plenty podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or find us on www.clnsmedia.com.